Welcome! We finally have the patch notes for Path of Exile 2 0.4, and there are some pretty great changes overall. So I'm going to go through a condensed version of the patch notes, mostly relating to the builds that I have made and played, and analyze them a bit in detail to see what I think the changes will bring. So first of all, we have the Druid, which conceptually has been one of the classes I've been looking forward to the most. And I'm still undecided if I will play the Druid or the Pathfinder. I will try to make builds for both. I will, with 100% certainty, update the Pathfinder builds I made, because I really like them. And the suspicious thing about the Druid is that I have not seen any mention of skill slots. So if you want to shapeshift, which I'm hoping to make some sort of shapeshifter build where you use multiple forms, if you have made any build, you know that in the end, when you have your auras, maybe some mobility skills, you tend to have about 4 skills left for actual usable abilities. And how's it gonna work? I mean, each form probably needs to give, let's say, 3 to 5 skill slots extra. Otherwise, each form will just be swap to a bear, that's 1 skill slot, right? Press slam. You're not gonna have more. Swap to the wyvern, spam fireball. That's 4 skill slots. You don't have more. But let's say that you have, you have 6 skill slots, 8, whatever. You have double unset rings. You can swap to the wolf, spam swipe. You want that new ability where you fly up in the air and breathe fire. Okay, 7 skills, and that means you can just shift and spam 1 attack on each. And that doesn't sound so fun. I was hoping... I hope that you get more skill slots, but I have not seen any mention of it. So conceptually it seems amazing, but I have some suspicions about the skill slots. But we'll see. Abyss goes core, which means probably run that more or less default as a tablet or keep swapping that out with ritual in SSF. But very nice. This is a very nice change. Preserved vertebrae no longer drop. This just added a lot of admin to the maps. They also removed instilling maps, which is also nice because, again, it's just too much admin, at least for my taste, in an ARPG. I don't want to sit and play Factorio between maps. And yeah, they mention optimizations. We'll see when released. Remember that you have to enable Resizable Bar to make PoE work well on most systems. I added a little guide snippet at the end here, and I have a link in the description as well to my Reddit post how to fix and enable it. So, some nerfs. Tailwind got some pretty well-deserved nerf. It still looks like it will be good though, so I think this is tuning in the reasonable levels. It's not to the ground for sure. Still a very good thing. Movement speed untouched, I guess. So yeah, still good. There are other nerfs to Deadeye and specifically Lightning Arrow. We'll get into it later, but this doesn't destroy the class even if the nerfs are sizable. Unarmed speed, this will buff the unarmed monk stuff a bit when leveling Hollow Palm. I tried to level this completely solo self-found, and at every point a proper SSF staff beat the Hollow Palm in damage. So yeah, I don't know. It's not something I care much about, but yeah, it's probably much needed for the leveling, and then I think they nerfed it a bit instead for endgame on the actual skill. This was a big nerf here to the cap that allowed you to always count as surrounded. However, I mean, if you fight enemies, you're always going to fight at least one enemy. So it's always going to work in combat, and you'll still be fully functional, but you will mostly lose the movement speed out of combat. So I think this will still be fine, and it's mostly a minor movement speed nerf, and the builds will be just as strong in combat. It's a bit of a nerf to the critical weakness application, a new Mirage Archer, which can be very good. I don't think this has the restriction of the Spirit Reserve version, where you have to dodge, and only dodge when you want to spam your Archer, otherwise it never goes off cooldown. So this could be very good, but remains to be seen. Pathfinder, the juicy stuff here. Contagious contamination has been removed, which means that you can get to the double poison stacking overwhelming toxicity for just 2 points, I assume, because there is no mention of anything replacing it. And practical remedies, I don't think many people used it, so it's just been removed. Nice buff to running assault, that you can now use your sprint freely when attacking. That's going to be very nice, and that might allow you to actually drop blink in most builds and just rely on the sprint. So that's very, very good. And here's interesting stuff. I had a look in the tree what this can achieve, and a new Path Seeker multi-choice ascendancy skill, where you can either allocate passives from the warrior or Sork starting point, and each choice grants 4 passive skill points. So you get the same as before, and this is the prerequisite to Traveler's Wisdom. This previously gave skill points, so now you get the skill points and you get to path to the other classes starting point. And so some basic uses, starting from the Sork, can both work if you just want some energy shield, because there are a lot of things you can path through up to melding and those, and pretty much no wasted points. So this will save you a solid amount of passive points if you do. You can also use it, something I experimented with but didn't work that well. If you want to make a running assault caster to have more mobility while casting, it kinda costs too many points to path up from the Pathfinder and up there, so this will enable caster builds with running assault, which will be very nice. So those are 2 uses. Same thing if you want to make some sort of melee build with the Pathfinder thing, which yeah, you can use the warrior starting thing, but since you can't move when you use most melee attacks anyway, I don't know. Could be some concoction combo maybe with the warrior and all the fire stuff, but it's not something I have tried. It also has some decent early passives you can pick up for cheap, so maybe. But the main thing seems to be, at least in the builds I have made, the Sork ES stuff. And skip past the ones I don't play much. Stormweaver. This looks like a very meh thing, but I made a Stormweaver, had big mana issues, and I fixed it with the aura that reserves spirit to grant you mana fragments spawning from all the things all the time. And I was very suspicious, but it magically fixed the mana. It just, I spec'd all these collected from further away in the tree, and that with spamming all kinds of spells, doesn't matter which, it worked with anything I tried, actually fixes your mana even on single target bosses. So this looks like, but it is, this will probably save you a few passive points. So this is better than it looks if you use the remnants to purely fix your mana and maybe other interactions. So actually quite interesting, even if it looks completely meh. Chayula. It's one of the classes that so many people ask me about, because it was probably the best poison before they changed or nerfed the Ascendancy. I don't think they intended to nerf it, but Chayula was probably the best for all poison things in 0.1, and when they changed it, it just became weird, like more or less useless for poison stuff, unless I'm missing something, and yeah, I don't think this will fix anything. It's a pretty minor thing that If you have seen my auto-exploding gas arrow build, which I updated, which will still work by all I've read here, I link the old builds in the description here in case you want to have a look at them. This will improve that build a bit. Not greatly, but more than you think, because you have access to so few points of flammability. So massively increasing it, I think, will make the build much more consistent from the get-go. So I think this is a very decent buff to the exploding gas arrow builds, because token points will make it run really well. Massively, I don't know what massively is, but we'll see. And here was the hollow pal thing that I tried. So they have nerfed how much it gives from your armor by a lot, but they increased the base. So I think it will be better from the get-go and while leveling, which was very underwhelming to level with, even in SSF. And it will nerf it in endgame. I heard some reports that it was OP for some things with Amazon in endgame. Here is a big nerf to Walker of the Wilds. This keystone allows you to leech mana from elemental instead, and having to pick a support slot just to enable leech will be a pretty big nerf to some builds that relied on it, actually, losing one support gem. So yeah, I don't know, GGG have some fascination that only only physical damage should be allowed to leech stuff, and the rest can, you know, find some weird complicated workaround. I don't know what the point of this is, but just seems strange to me. I wish this remained as it was and just allowed leech any kind of life for any kind of thing as you please, or yeah, I don't know. And here is a big theme in the patch, that passives that granted reduced movement speed penalty has had their values lowered. They don't say by how much, but there are other examples below in the patch note. For example, on Corsair Coat, which could have up to 20%, was always the best body for anything that didn't use Aroa, completely nerfed to the ground and instead gives 5% movement speed. So if it's anything like that, probably expect them to be cut in half or something. And while this might be healthy for the game, because not every build always can run around and attack at full speed if they want to keep the vision of a bit more combat where you don't just zoom. And yeah, it does, however, increase the value of running assault on the Pathfinder, because running assault on the Pathfinder became useless when you reached true endgame and could just have full 100% reduced movement speed penalty instead. So this will once again probably bring the Pathfinder Ascendancy itself up to the top tier. They seem to have revamped the additional arrows so that the mod on bows will no longer just give you an additional arrow, it will give a chance. It seems to be the same range, but I think the reason is they want to add some granularity so they can combine the passives and the gear mods together. I don't think it is a nerf straight up, just a change of mechanics. And again, some of this remnant pickup has been buffed. This is nice, it's nicer than it looks. Because you had to spend some points to get Radius to automatically like vacuum up all these remnants and keep your mana topped up. And I had to spend, I don't know, 8-ish points probably to make this work on a Stormweaver, and now you can probably spend less combined with the previously mentioned Ascendancy. So this is probably nice. And this will probably save you a couple passive points combined with the Ascend. It's one of the better lightning nodes a bit. It's probably a nerf to it, but yeah. And here it's a pretty big thing. So many people used companion nodes. Both, I tried to throw in companion as a last aura when I had spirit, and also of course the Roa builds changed so that they no longer grant both companions and you deal damage. So this is a big nerf to having a companion or the Roa. And if you saw the Pathfinder changes earlier, since they have removed the poison proliferation from the Pathfinder, you will have to run Herald of Agony, so you probably can't afford to run the companion anyway. So that's probably how this will end up. And the companion will simply not be worth it just for the aura that you have sometimes, since they are kind of flaky and run away and you have to resummon them and so on. So yeah, big nerf to companion. This one is really nice. This will be a decent buff to Pathfinder poison builds or any kind of similar builds. This used to give 20%, so it used to be like, meh, I can't be bothered to farm this, even though it might be nice in SSF. But when it becomes 40%, then yeah, this is going to be a chase item that I will probably farm if I play Pathfinder or poison. This looks nice, I haven't tried it, but yeah. This one I used for shield charge, and since I had so much more attack speed on the shield charge when I linked all of them, again, if you want to check this, you can see some of my planners I have in the videos linked below for the builds. I have it in almost all the builds, shield charge with massive amounts of attack speed supports. So it used to give 20% more attack speed for my shield charge, but now it will give 30% increased. And since I don't have that much increased attack speed, this might come out to a buff for using it as a shield charge attack. Either way, it will be break even or slightly more, I think, because all the other more attack speed will buff this increased attack speed. It's also a nice buff. I used this. This is a good option when they nerf companion nodes now, so they will most likely be useless. This was one of my other best options, that you had Kurgel's Leash and Brutus Brain, which makes the the minion immortal, and you just pick a minion with a short cooldown command. Doesn't matter what you command, it will not do damage. You will get Unholy Might, which is straight up more damage for physical and poison builds. And 15 seconds is a very nice duration, because 5 seconds was kinda annoying to have to recast it. It was basically only worth to pre-cast for bosses and so on. But when it becomes 15 seconds, then yeah, this is a pretty solid thing to run. And recommend starting out with it. Because 15 seconds means you can most likely afford the time to keep it up all the time. Another nice buff for poison builds. Arcalis Lust straight up buffed 40% from 30%. So very nice. Also buffed. This used to be like, maybe I can find a way to fit this, but it's not worth the work. I never found a worthwhile way to fit it. For melee builds it seems easier, but for bow builds it seems really hard to get range without sacrificing something big. But when it's 2%, then maybe we are getting into the territory of it being worth sacrificing for. There's a kind of funny note. Nova projectiles no longer causes supporter skills to gain additional projectiles and deal less damage. So what does it do then? Like nothing. But yeah, I think what it does, now it only fires them in a circle, but you need to provide the additional projectiles. So it might still be useful, but you have to itemize for it. It will not give you a freebie Nova thing. And then they have the new projectiles, which will give same thing as the old one did, but add a cooldown. So very, very limiting. Frozen Mandibles, many people used for companion or specters, and it was too easy to get, I guess, and too fast, so it's been removed. This was a nerf to the concoction that would consume the pseudo poison that Vine Arrow copied, so that was a bug they fixed. It makes no difference, it was never worth using anyway. You had to give up your mobility shield charge to get it, so it was a major DPS loss to use in any way, shape or form, unless you were just running a boss build and farming bosses all day long. And even then we are probably talking like seconds in a day. Ghost Dance nerfed. won't affect anything. You will still run it. It's still one of the best defensive things in the game, and what enables most evasion builds to be tanky at all, since evasion is kind of flaky and it's really low values of dodge chance in PoE2. So yeah, instead of hitting like 1 second per shroud, I think you'll end up at about 2 seconds with the best possible supports. So might go from that, yeah, you can no longer go AFK with the builds I made inside an abyss, but yeah, it's still gonna be the best. Herald of Thunder, this is a big nerf to the lightning builds, especially lightning arrow. I don't know if you tried lightning arrow and accidentally disabled Herald of Thunder, suddenly you kill nothing. So Herald of Thunder is what mainly clears for the lightning arrow builds. And this is not an enormous nerf, but I mean, it is about 20-ish%, right? So they have tuned it down, as well as the Deadeye. Some minor buff, I think, to Ice Shot. Lightning Arrow, big nerfs to the boss killing potential, where you stack up a bunch of lightning rods and fire the lightning arrow at them. They both added a limit to how many lightning rods you can have. You can have 10, used to be 20. So they literally cut it in half and added a cooldown to how fast it can burst. Here was the limit to lightning rod, cut in half. Perfect Strike, a bit tuned up again, not much, but yeah, it's nice. Played this a bit on Warrior. Raw amount buffed again. It used to have a penalty when attacking, so basically if you had, let's say, I think the top builds could have like 200% movement speed-ish, but when attacking, you could never get out of this penalty, which you could if you did not use the Roa. So you basically had 160 speed when you had it maxed, and now it will be full speed again when attacking, but it lost the 50% movement speed it had. But again, this will give you about 40% movement speed while attacking, so slower out of combat, but much faster in combat. On the other hand, again, they nerfed all the damage the companion nodes gave, so I still think just being on the ground and having access to shield charge and blink is far superior, just like last league. Minor buff to collision damage. Tempest Bells buffed a bit the area, kinda nice. The main issue with this is the auto-targeting. I hope they disable it at some point. When you play on mouse and keyboard, I don't want anything to auto-target. Yeah, I don't know how many times I died on the monk because I put down the bell, I start attacking it, and it just, instead of attacking it and killing and freezing everything, I just hit some trash mob behind because the auto-target decided that, yeah, that's what you should attack. So if for some reason they insist on keeping the auto-target to make everything a bit inefficient like a controller or so, which I can understand, but then, yeah, it needs to really hard target the Tempest Bell with the auto-targeting. Like, if there is a Tempest Bell, never hit anything else, then, yeah, it could work. Toxic Domain seems to have made it a bit more consistent with the explosions, same as the growths, I assume, and a bit more health regen. Here's a big thing, though. This, at first glance, looks like a pretty big nerf to poison builds using toxic growths. So they have increased the limit. It used to be 8, and keep in mind, quality on toxic growth gave you 2 extra limit and 2 extra pustules. So previously you actually had 10, and now it will be 14. And now you fire 4, except if the quality is unchanged, there's no mention about the quality, then you will fire 6. So the nerf isn't as big as it looks, because you will go from 10 to 6, so it's not, they don't cut it in half, they nerf it by 40%, how many you fire. However, I don't think it will be as big of a nerf as it seems, because I think many that explode would not hit the center target anyway when you fired on a boss, unless it was like a very large hitbox boss. So it allows you to pre-stack 2 casts now, or 3 even, partially, instead of before where you only had the limit of 10. So you can pre-stack a tiny bit better, and you gain the attack speed. So it is still a nerf, but it's not as big as it looks. It's give or take, let's say a 20-25% nerf, while it allows you to pre-stack better. So it's not such a big deal, I think. It looks really bad, but I don't think it actually will be. I think it will be perfectly fine. Especially with the spread. So I think the outer postules often didn't hit your main target anyway. But we'll see. We'll see. Vine Arrow, it looks nice, but they still only attach one per target on boss. So this will more or less do nothing. You will just be allowed to have a few more when you run around and AoE and level. So it's a very nice thing for leveling. Very nice, actually. Because the more Vine Arrows will remain and AoE when you run past and grant you more XP. But it does not make a big difference to endgame gameplay. We'll take Mark. I made a monk build with this. It was very nice, almost like controllable flicker strike. It had some issues sometimes where the strike wouldn't target properly, and there was a mention that palm skills had more proper targeting to avoid this issue. So I think that will be fixed as well. It was a very fast and good build. Using Voltaic Mark with the Hand of Chayula to apply that and the curse and just blow everything up. And keep blinking ahead with Hand of Chayula. No longer causes an explosion, so completely gutted that build, I guess. Nerf to Wind Dancer. It used to actually kill a pack that attacked you. And yeah, why not? I can agree with this nerf. Seems they have buffed Adorned. More gamble, but many uniques that have been updated. There were a couple that stuck out, but Choir of the Storm, actually nice. I used this in a couple caster builds and tried it on a Lightning Arrow build, where I tried to have only generic lightning damage and nothing for attacks specifically, except attack speed, because that's what would proc the lightning bolt. And then I tried to have a staff with really juicy skills and lightning damage and so on in the second slot, which made Choir of the Storm do damage as if you were fully spec'd as a caster, more or less. And with Temporalis, so you could proc every 0.05 seconds or so, and it spammed lightning bolts. However, when you set the lightning bolt to only cast on your second skill, it simply disabled it. I'm not sure if that was a bug or unintended, but yeah. This is a good item anyway, regardless. Yeah, it's a buff to this flask. This is kind of nice flask for many builds. Nice buff on duration, actually. We'll take Rift. I tried to make some builds with it. I really can't seem to make it as strong as a pure physical poison build. So this was probably a much needed buff. It just felt weak. It has low crit, low damage, and the shock it gave simply didn't make up for it. I didn't see any situation where it wouldn't be better to just run an original Sin and a pure bow. And even that is hard to build, so yeah. Might be viable in some builds now, but not SSF friendly, kinda rare. Here's a bit of a nerf, I think, to Maligaros if you run it in a lightning build, where they often have some lucky effects. So lucky rerolls the chance to crit, and it cannot be rerolled. On the other hand, if you ever have something that makes you unlucky, this will also disable the unlucky, so it could be a blessing and a curse. Queen of the Forest. There is no mention if you still can only gain movement speed from Queen of the Forest, like it previously had. So assuming the patch notes are correct, and that is unchanged, then this item is now completely dead. Unless you make some early starter twink build that you intend to drop in a few levels, and yeah, basically it's dead. Yeah, there's also a buff to this. If the cooldown stays the same and it gets 5 procs each use, that's very nice buff. But I wish they would make it so you can set it again to cast on a secondary item, so you can use it in melee builds as well, or archer builds. But yeah, it felt overpowered if it had worked, maybe. So maybe not, maybe not. Here are some big changes to items. And this is also in the theme of nerfing the reduced movement speed penalty stat, where Farul's Rune of Grace, you could previously stack this into triple socket boots with 100% effect of socketed items and get a lot of reduced movement speed penalty here, combined with about 6 passive points in the tree, an anoint, and some more stuff, and Corsair Coat, and reach 100%. So with only 1 rune in your boots, you would have to pick 1 movement speed rune and 1 reduction and just get some makeshift combo out of it. And again, this further buffs the Pathfinder Ascendancy, since that might now be one of the best ways to get this stat, while previously you can just itemize it. So yeah, big nerfs to triple socket gloves and boots. But in many cases you can just pick some mix of good stuff, but it will definitely come out as a nerf to every build that use them. And it's more of the same, like limited to 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And here is an interesting change that I mentioned. Bow attacks fire additional arrows disabled. However, they just swapped it to better granularity, so you can combine percent on the passives and on the gear. I'm guessing it's gonna be exactly the same with a mid tier, that maybe this will make it more common. So I'm gonna guess that this will be a good change, not a nerf. Some nerfs to some essences. 1 less level on the perfect essence. Maybe justified, was a bit easy to just get a high tier. Corsair Coat, one of the best items in the game for movement speed penalty. Used to give 20%, now it is nerfed to just give movement speed. Again, this is good for Pathfinder. This is still a nerf to Pathfinder as well, but it's a net relative power increase for Pathfinder compared to everyone else for the movement speed stuff. And apparently Farul's Rune of Grace completely deleted. So yeah, there's a big trend. They don't want people to have this reduced movement speed penalty stat. And again, strong relative power buff to Pathfinder compared to other ascendancies. Used to be that you dropped running assault when you had good gear and this max stacked, but now I guess with the buff and the sprint as well, without stun on running assault, it will be one of the best things for even more builds. Here's a lot of changes to maps. The main thing to take away here is rush, kill Arbiter of Ash in early endgame to unlock crafting tablets with beyond 2 modifiers. All of this just seems to be, I read through it, it's mainly like minor changes here and there in percent changes of stuff appearing on the mods. This will actually be good for poison builds. Previously, you know, a poison build has some build up. So yeah, while someone can insta-kill a boss and you technically have dealt instant deadly damage, but they still need to tick for a while. And now, I mean, he will have his big anti-burst damage reduction, and when you have fully stacked poison, it's probably a matter of seconds anyway, but technically a minor advantage to dot builds. I read through this, it was nothing super interesting. So yeah, mostly I think buffed because of the support gems and other changes to Pathfinder and the relative power increase of the reduced movement speed penalty stuff. And I think since there were no big changes, you can even reuse any of the old builds I made for Pathfinder. and very little will change, and I still will, of course, update the builds and have more details when PoB is updated. So with that said, some technical prep for Path of Exile launch. In the previous league, I found that Resizable Bar off causes big problems in Path of Exile, and Nvidia has started disabling it for some reason in drivers for a bunch of versions now. So you want to enable it. Resizable Bar, if you're not familiar, basically allows your computer to directly address your GPU memory. So the game can stream like shaders and textures directly into VRAM for much more efficient loading, and all modern games seems to like to not preload stuff and instead stream stuff in while you play. And consoles do as well. Not that you can change it there. But you want to just download Nvidia Profile Inspector. Just Google it and you'll find a link. Scroll down to Common. Set Rebar Enabled. Options. Pick this one. This is just fluff. The actual value is here. So doesn't matter that it says a bunch of game names here. Then size limit. You can pick, for most cards, you can just safely pick this option. This is the hex value for 1 GB. Again, it doesn't matter which names it says here, the value is to the right. And 1 GB is fine for pretty much all modern cards in the 40 series and later. Maybe if you have some card that supports it that's a bit older, like a 30 or 20 series card, you don't want 1 GB, maybe you want a bit less, I'm not sure. You can pick this option, which I think is like 5 or a few hundred megabyte instead. And this will greatly improve Path of Exile performance. The game hardly runs without it at all. It can literally double or triple the FPS in many bogged down situations. So try this, and remember you have to do it on every driver update. So with that said, I will have the builds done before launch for both Druid and Pathfinder, hopefully. I am still undecided which I will play, but both seem really great. So thank you for watching, and see you closer to launch.